Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Terry with the Downtown Boulder Partnership. Thank you all for joining us. It's hard to believe this is the 5th of our weekly chats. The entire staff is thinking of all of you, and we hope you're all taking care of yourselves as we move through the weeks. To start this call, I'm going to turn it over to Julia first for a quick reminder of how we'll use Zoom today to ask questions and make comments. Next, Lori Ray, the Director of Member Engagement for the Employers Council, is going to share a PowerPoint and attempt to answer many of the questions previously asked by several of you. If you'd like Lori to send you a follow-up email with additional resources, please just write your name in the comment box by the end of the call, and I will share your email addresses with her in a separate email. Following Lori's presentation, Erin Jones, the Executive Director from Workforce Boulder, will say a few words. And then we have Jeff and maybe Cher with the Colorado Department of Labor and Unemployment who were able to join us. And we're so thankful for all of your time and joining us this morning. Following those presentations, we will open it up to Q&A until 10 a.m. At that time, our presenters will go about their day, and Chip will jump on with a few updates from the partnership. At that time, you will see a poll pop up on your screen asking about your preference to continue the frequency of these meetings. We're willing to do it as many times a week or bi-weekly as needed, so we just want some feedback from all of you. We will definitely have a meeting next Tuesday, April 21st, where we will welcome Senator Steve Fenberg for an update directly. This call is being recorded, and the link will be shared later today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Julia, but not before once again thanking all of the people that jumped on the call to share information with us today. So Julia, do you want to give a quick Zoom talk?
Sure, yes, good morning. Like Terry mentioned, we just like to do a quick Zoom how-to at the beginning of each call so that everybody gets the most out of the meeting. First, we ask that you please keep your Zoom window open because there will be a presentation for you to follow along with. If you're on the phone, like Terry mentioned, we can make those materials available afterward by sharing the recording and providing additional resources as requested. We ask that participants do keep their camera off and stay muted throughout the call unless otherwise directed. This just helps us minimize background noise and distractions during the call and allow us to focus on our presenters who can choose to have their cameras on or off. When it comes time for discussion, we ask that you indicate that you'd like to contribute by adding to the chat feed. So if you go to the bottom of your Zoom window, you'll see a toolbar, and in the middle section, there is a chat button. If you click on the chat button, it'll open up a window where you can see a feed of comments made by fellow participants. So I added an example in that chat feed. I hope you are all able to open up that window. You can type out a complete question, or if you want to just be able to be prompted to unmute, you can let us know that you have something to add. If you're dialed in on the phone, you can similarly indicate that you'd like to contribute using *9. If you dial *9, we get a signal on our screen that you'd like to add something, and we can prompt you to unmute your phone. We'll monitor that chat feed and take input from participants in order, and then we'll take kind of phone participants at last. We'll ask you to unmute one at a time, and when it comes time to unmute, you use the microphone button again on the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom window. In the far left, you'll see a mute unmute button that looks like a microphone. So if you click on that, it'll allow us to hear you. And similarly on your phone, if you are dialed in from mobile, you can use *6 to unmute. And we can remind you of that throughout the call to make sure we get any comments necessary from phone participants. But that's kind of the quick and simple overview. It might be a refresher for a lot of you, but Terry, I guess if I'll pass it back to you if you don't have anything else. I think it's Lori's turn, so I'll let you tell us what's next.
Thank you, Julia. I am going to turn it right over to Lori. I'm going to share my screen in full slideshow mode. So Julia, if anything comes up, please just text me. I'll watch my phone as well. Lori, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, good morning. I wanted to talk to you about the COVID unemployment under the CARES Act. It changed a lot and really made the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment's job that much more difficult than it already was when everybody was clamoring for unemployment benefits. But I kind of wanted to go through some basic information after looking at the questions. And first of all, if you have more information about the coronavirus laws that have been put into place, go to our website. While we're a membership organization, we are helping our members with a lot of information about this law. I should introduce myself a little bit. I'm an attorney who's helped employers with employment law for the past 28 years or so. And I've never worked so hard as recently trying to come up to speed on all these laws. And a lot of my colleagues have been helping me. So we do have links to our website for you. And you could refer to them here. I also can help you with some information and kind of sorting through it if you'd like to put your name in towards the end. I wanted to just do a brief overview of the Paycheck Protection Program because that's also part of CARES. It applies to most businesses who have 500 or fewer employees. If you choose to do, and I'm sorry, my cat is acting up, so if you hear noise in the background, that's her. If you choose to use the Paycheck Protection Program, it does mean that you keep your employees paid during this, or at least 75% of the payroll stays intact. There's a look back period between February 15th and June 30th, and employees must be hired or rehired during that time in order to take advantage of it. And somebody was wondering if you could have employees work from home to be eligible for the PPP, and yes, you can. And another person was wondering if you could just, even if they can't really work, keep them on the payroll, and yes, you can. There, I have a link for the regulations of the PPP, and it describes in those regulations how to apply for the loan. I also wanted, some people seemed to have some questions about it, so I wanted to go over it immediately. First of all, those regulations that I referred to are effective immediately, and you apply the average monthly payroll cost for employees for the trailing 12 months from the date of the loan application. You also can only pay people up to to $100,000 limit, and the $100,000 limit we think includes health and retirement benefits. Furthermore, the 500 or fewer employee eligibility requirement only counts employees who are in the United States, and that's where their principal residents are. Independent contractors are not counted as employees and must apply for a PPP loan on their own. And at least 75% of the PPP loan proceeds must be used for payroll costs. They can also be used for rent and utilities and things like that. Okay, when it comes to unemployment, unemployment is a combination of state and federal law. States each have their own requirements for unemployment. Colorado's law is what I call an employee fault law. And the question is, what that means is, I'll go over that in a minute, is if the employee is at fault, they don't get unemployment, but it doesn't matter if the employer is at fault. It only matters if the employee is at fault. Now, the CARES Act, the federal law in general funds the benefit through the Federal Unemployment Tax Act. So most employers pay FUTA taxes. The CARES Act increases those benefits, and it pays for local government and nonprofit costs, the unemployment costs for those folks. And then the experience rating is spread over everyone. So if you had to lay off a lot of employees, your experience rating doesn't go up because of the employees you had to lay off. Although later on, when they recalculate the experience rating, they'll spread it over everyone. At least that's what I understand from listening to Jeff last week. So if I'm wrong on that, he'll correct us. Typically, employees get 26 weeks of unemployment, or up to 26 weeks, depending on how much they've worked in the past. Right now, they can have up to 39 weeks. And all workers who get benefits, the lowest benefit that you can receive at the state level is $25. And so if you were eligible for that $25, you would now get $625. The Colorado Department of Labor and Employment has done a great job at providing great information around unemployment if you really work that website and look through it. And so there is a link there. Okay, when I talked about employee fault criteria, employees receive benefits unless the reason for the job loss is the fault of the employee. So illness, if I quit because I'm sick and I can't come to work, that's not my fault. If I'm laid off, that's not my fault. If I really never could do the job, I just wasn't any good at it, that's not my fault. If I moved, that's not my fault. Or if the employer reduced hours or pay or provided completely different duties, that's generally not my fault. So all of those are reasons that an employee would receive unemployment. A covered employer is anyone who hires at least one worker. Right now, covered employees are full-time employees who drop below 32 hours, part-time employees who don't have work or have much less work, furloughed employees, and in this, for the purposes of this webinar, furloughed employees are those who are job attached. In other words, the employer said, look, right now we're not going to have you work, but when things get back to normal, we'll bring you back. Seasonal employees have the right to benefits, and temporary employees have the right to benefits unless they refuse work. It's also true that employees who are hired on an as-needed or an on-call basis have rights to unemployment. Typically, there is a 1-week waiting period to receive benefits. Now, covered employees now includes the self-employed, gig workers, and independent contractors. They may have a higher level of proof. I'm not entirely sure. I've been reading sort of conflicting information about this. The state website is not quite ready, but it should be so soon. Just so you kind of understand the benefit amounts, they begin at 25 weeks. They're available for up to 26 weeks. There's 2 different formulas. And just so you know, it's a good thing I'm a lawyer and not a mathematician, because I barely understand what I'm going to tell you right now. The one formula is 60% of 1/26 of the highest 2 consecutive base quarters. And the other formula is 50% of 1/52nd of the total base period wages. I don't know why there's 2 formulas, and I don't quite know how they work, but I bet Jeff does. And there are charts on the state website, if you go there, that kind of lay this out and explain it. This is my basic information. that I'm giving you today. If you have any questions, you do call us or go to our website. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori. Erin, do you want to unmute and say a few words?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Erin Jones, and I'm the Executive Director for Workforce Boulder County. And as you can see, our website is up here on the screen. I'm sure you are all inundated with lots and lots of information right now and trying to figure out what is the best plan for yourself and your employees. And we would love to be a resource for you in the community. We have moved about 99% of our services to virtual services. We set up a virtual call center, and I think the number is on there, yes. It's the 720-776-0822 number. And it has it's also the public health line as well. So if you have questions about the public health, you can also access that. But you can choose workforce, and then there's 3 lines, one for individual job seekers, Spanish speakers, and then for businesses. So I have about 18 staff who are working that call center to help navigate through some of the questions you might have. We also have moved, and we could actually help. Right now we're helping monolingual Spanish speakers use a proxy form to complete unemployment insurance applications, because the call center is in English and Spanish, and Jeff can tell you more about this. And then the online application, which is the best way to file a claim, is in English. And so we can help proxy that application for monolingual Spanish speakers. If you have them on staff, you can direct them to us. Eventually, we'll probably be helping more people with that, but right now, due to the inundation of UI claims, that's what we're working on right now. We also set up virtual job fairs. So we have about 20 employers that we're working with, and we're using our system called connectingcolorado.com, where those employers who have job openings like UPS and Intrado and some of the healthcare providers in our community, that virtual job fair is in Connecting Colorado. And what the benefits of a virtual job fair is that you can in real time communicate with an employer. So if any of you have people that you're furloughing or laying off and they want to find other opportunities to work, that's another way of doing that. So you can see on the screen here, there's connectingcolorado.com, and you can go in as a job seeker or an employer. One of the things I did want to say was I'm going to send some information, I think, to Terry, and she can send it out on the call. We have some links and information that would be helpful for all of you to connect with us so that we can support our local community in this crisis and in the future as we all rebound. So that's what I have. I want to make sure there's enough time for Jeff.
Thank you so much, Erin. Jeff, do you want to go ahead and say a few words?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I don't have a formal presentation, but I just wanted to open with a little bit of background. I really want to get to your questions. I might go on just a little bit in anticipation of some of the questions you might have. So please bear with me as I give sort of a broad overview. Goes without saying we're in unprecedented times. It's been an interesting journey to move from 2.5% unemployment rate in early March to suddenly just having an overwhelming demand for unemployment insurance benefits literally overnight. To put a little bit of context for that, we went from getting about 2,000 applications a week and processing and delivering unemployment insurance for about 2,000 people to getting on a nightly basis at our highest volume, getting in about 20,000 applications a day. So we've actually, as of yesterday, we've surpassed 250,000 applications for unemployment insurance. Bear in mind that the official data for who's on unemployment insurance, the rolls, if you will, that lags behind considerably. So the past 3 weeks, what you'll see in terms of the official data is that we have 125,000 enrollees into UI benefits. That lags considerably behind the 250,000 applications. So that's why there's a discrepancy between those numbers. So I just want to talk a little bit about our operations and what we did to try to pivot to address this emergency situation. Go through some of the technical challenges that we've had and worked our way through, I'm proud to say, and then get a little bit into the specifics as it relates to the employer community specifically. And then talk a little bit more about the CARES Act and try to go through who's eligible, what are the provisions for within the CARES Act, and who's eligible for what within that. And then, as I said, I want to get to your questions. So when it became and so again, at 2.5% unemployment rate, my division was essentially staffed and positioned to deal with about a 2.5% unemployment rate. So when it became very apparent what was happening and just the crushing demand that would be coming, we quickly reorganized our organization such that we dropped all ancillary activities and redirected the entire workforce to a few critical functions, specifically around core benefit analysis, as well as the call center, which I'll talk about in a little bit more depth, and really ceased all ancillary activities that are required by the federal government. On the business services side, we had to maintain some of those functions for obvious reasons, but also we shifted a great number of our resources to a program called WorkShare, which is one that I encourage you to look into. It's an opportunity to retain your staff at lower levels as opposed to hiring off, say, 100 people, laying off, 100 people. You might reduce everyone by 40%, if you will. Try to retain your workforce if you can. That way you retain your talent, you keep them on the rolls, and they're eligible for partial benefits. So we also redirected our staff to that function. We also took some proactive steps around emergency rules around a few specific areas. First and foremost, we removed any penalty and interest for late filing and reporting on behalf of employers. So we relaxed those timelines. There will not be any penalties or interest accrued if you have to file late. As was mentioned by Lori in her overview, we also took steps to socialize charging for the emergency period, meaning, again, if anything that's directly or indirectly related to the COVID-19 emergency, that those payment of benefits for people that you employ, those will not directly hit your rate, your experience rate with unemployment insurance. That'll be socialized. We also took steps to remove what's called the waiting week. Typically in unemployment insurance, there's a waiting week before a person is eligible for benefits. That's been removed in the effort, of course, to get funds into people's hands as quickly as possible. And then we also amended what's called able and available and actively searching work. So let me start with actively searching work. Again, unique times. We recognize essentially that for the vast majority of people, they might be still attached to their employer and will resume regular employment when that employer is able to do so. So we've suspended the necessity by law that you have a necessity to be actively seeking work while you're unemployed. We've suspended and relaxed that. All that we've asked you to do, and Aaron clicked on the website and talked about it, the only function you need to perform on that front is you need to register with the Connecting Colorado. You don't actually do any work search for the time being. And we also amended what's called able and available. So able and available, that's a provision of UI law as well. Essentially, if you are not able to work, if you're not available to work, you are not deemed part of the workforce, and therefore you're not eligible for unemployment insurance benefits. These unique times, of course, you have to change your thinking on that. And so it's generally presumed that people are able, quote unquote, and available, quote unquote, to work absent the emergency, the shelter at home order, things along those lines. So we've suspended that as well. I should mention that we, again, the workforce was not, in terms of my own division, was not poised to take on this unprecedented demand. We sought and got some emergency funds from the state to hire temporary employees. We've applied for some grants from the feds to also bolster our administrative funds. And so we're rapidly growing our organization to support what will be undoubtedly this acute demand right now, and then the fallout 3 months down the line as the unemployment rate undoubtedly will grow. We've also, so emphasizing what Aaron touched on, the best way to communicate with our organization, the best way to get services is absolutely via the website and online. That will be the most seamless way to interact with our division. We continue to have challenges with our call center. The demand just simply is far greater than we can possibly handle. On a given day, we may get, and this isn't unique people, but this is attempts into the call center. On any given day, we might have between 200,000 to 250,000 attempts to call into our call center. So we've beefed up our staffing within that, but it can't possibly handle all of that demand. So we've also signed a contract, I think effective today. We're going to be outsourcing another call center that's going to help to relieve that and allow more people to get through. Let me shift to technical a little bit. Again, we went from about 2,000 applications a week to as high as 20,000 in a day. We've received more than 250,000 applications. So the system wasn't simply designed for 20,000 people trying to all file in the same hour. Sort of akin to everyone trying to get through the Eisenhower Tunnel in the exact same 5-minute period of time. You know the backlogs, you've sat through them on the highway. So similar issue with regards to our online application to file. So it took some time, admittedly, to work through that issue. We had to implement a gating mechanism. So filing is now by your last name, and it basically staggers every other day with Saturday split as to when applicants can file. That has relieved an enormous burden and allowed a great deal higher throughput in terms of applications that we're able to process. So that gating system is in place. Once we worked through that technical challenge, we found another technical challenge in terms of people getting their PINs. This may be an issue that you've heard of. You need your PIN to actually request a payment. And so does little good if you can apply for and get approved for benefits, but you can't get your PIN, and therefore you cannot actually request payments. So quickly a backlog built up on getting the payments, and I won't get into the minutia of that technical challenge, but the bottom line is that we've now resolved that, and we're now emailing out PINs as opposed to sending them by US mail. So one tip I would strongly encourage is when you file for unemployment, or if you have staff that are filing for unemployment, please, please, please include an email address in your application. It's not a required field right now. But if you do include your email address, the process will move much more smoothly. And you should expect that after you've gotten a confirmation on your application, you will have your PIN in your email in about 3 to 4 business days. And then if you have already submitted your application and you haven't gotten your PIN, on the website, we've now got an item specifically to address that. If you go into coloradoui.gov and there's some yellow boxes that'll direct you a couple different directions. If you click on the workers button, you'll see an area that talks about filing for benefits. Yeah, they're scrolling through it right now. And on one of them is a little blurb about, have you not gotten your PIN yet? I think if you scroll down on that website, it might talk about, there it is, request a new PIN. So if you've already filed and you haven't gotten your PIN, simply click on that button, put in your email address, and we will get you your PIN. So we worked through that issues. We're now more up to date on that. Proud to say that we've maneuvered through all those technical challenges. And as of just Sunday and Monday alone, just to give you an idea of where we are now, Sunday and Monday alone, yesterday and Easter Sunday, we were able to, 95,000 people requested payments on these 2 days. So very proud of the work that we're doing in terms of getting money out into the community around economic stabilization. That's just 2 days alone. And as you can imagine, those are our 2 highest days ever recorded in the history of unemployment insurance in terms of 2 days in terms of getting file requests out. So let me talk a little bit about the trust fund. And Lori gave a brief synopsis of the trust fund. Essentially, that is funded by employers for covered employees. So I just want to distinguish between that trust fund and the CARES Act. So The UI regular trust fund, what that does is it supports payments for regular unemployment insurance or standard unemployment insurance for the first 26 weeks. Through the CARES Act, nothing about that changes. So nothing that the employers in the state of Colorado, in terms of what they fund, payments coming out of that, nothing changes within the CARES Act. Everything under the CARES Act is federally funded. So the employer community within the state of Colorado is still responsible for the first 26 weeks of just regular unemployment insurance benefits. So that's what that trust fund pays. One of the provisions that the feds outlined, and so solvency of that fund is a concern, as we've seen a massive spike in the number of claims that we're processing. So one thing I will tell you is that one of the steps that the federal government put in place when this spike went into effect is that they've implemented interest-free borrowing to keep that trust fund solvent, and that extends through December of 2020. That could be extended, but that's where it stands right now. So if we find ourselves in a situation where we have to borrow to keep benefits payments processing in the first 26 weeks of regular unemployment, we can do that. We can do so through interest-free borrowing from the feds. The other thing I will announce, or I want to mention, is that we talked a little bit about the charging being socialized, but those are not the only elements that will impact any specific employer's premiums for the coming year. So every June 30th, what happens is there's a snapshot of what the balance of the trust fund is, and that will determine the overall rate schedule for the entire employer universe for the following calendar year. So the June 30th trust fund balance determines what is the overall rate schedule for January of 2021 through December of 2021. So we'll have to see what that rate schedule, what that balance is. That will drive likely up, or I should say no doubt up, the rate schedule that the employer community is on. The other thing to mention is prior to hitting, due to state law, prior to hitting zero in the trust fund, where we would move to insolvency, prior to that, there are measures in place to try to keep that fund solvent. So before the trust fund hits a negative balance, there's a step in there called a solvency surcharge. So if we get below a certain threshold, well above zero, but far below what is ideal for these economic times, what might trigger into place is called a solvency surcharge, which would be an additional premium. So I just want to be very clear about the difference between the socialized costs versus the mechanisms that are in place to keep the trust fund solvent itself. Happy to answer questions on that, but before I do that, let me talk a little bit more about the CARES legislation. So there's three overarching elements that are most critical to the CARES system, to the package, the CARES Act, as it relates to unemployment insurance benefits. So I want to be clear, the legislation on that was passed on 3/27, signed by the president on the same day. However, this is a federally guided program, meaning the state itself does not set the rules or the parameters on how this program will work. So we had to wait for guidance from the federal government on how this program should be operated through the states. Essentially, it's funded by the federal government and operated by the states. So that the initial guidance on that, we got that on April 5th, but all through last week, we were getting further technical guidance through the balance of last week on each of the elements that I'm about to talk through. So the bottom line is that we didn't have the full guidance on that program until about 4/12. So what we're doing right now is setting up our IT systems to administer the program that they want us to administer. No one is more eager to get this in place than we are, but it will take time to orchestrate our systems to properly take in the claims and properly pay the claims. We're targeting an announcement at the end of this week to talk about when people can file under some of these provisions. So let me get into what the three provisions are right now. First, around regular unemployment insurance benefits, what this did, and Lori gave an overview in her presentation, what it does is above and beyond the 26 weeks, it adds an additional 13 weeks of regular unemployment insurance. So people that would typically be covered under that system will get another 13 weeks of, up to 13 weeks of additional benefits should they need it. And again, that's funded not out of our state trust fund, but those additional 13 weeks are funded by the federal government. The other provision it adds is, regardless of what type of benefits that you are getting, you will now get a flat standard $600 additional weekly on top of all your benefits. There's nothing additional you need to do in the process. That will simply be added to your benefit package. However, there's some caveats to that. The date range for that additional $600, it goes back to March 29th. And it extends as of right now through July 25th. So we were able to backdate claims such that for example, if you haven't filed yet, but you were impacted as of March 15th, excuse me, we can backdate your claim to March 15th. You will start getting benefits for that. You also get the additional $600. There's nothing additional you need to do. The other element that I think is perhaps of most interest for today's conversation is what's called pandemic unemployment assistance. And that's up to 39 weeks. So that mirrors the regular 26 plus the 13 under regular employment. So that duration is also 39 weeks. That can be backdated to February 2nd. If one can demonstrate that there was an impact to their earnings as far back as February 2nd, that can go back as far as February 2nd, and right now that extends through December 26th. So what pandemic unemployment assistance, or PUA, is what it's called, covers is those traditionally not covered under regular unemployment insurance. So it'll include folks that have exhausted regular unemployment assistance. It includes folks like gig workers, self-employed, independent contractors. I'm happy to go through. Well, I can touch on it in a minute. And it also is intended to cover very specific situations related to COVID-19 that would not normally be covered under regular unemployment insurance. So, for example, if you have a child at home and he or she would normally be in school, but of course they are not in school right now, and you have a job where you are unable to telework, you would be covered under pandemic unemployment assistance. Or if you are, for example, caring for someone that has been diagnosed with COVID-19 and therefore you cannot work, you would be covered under pandemic unemployment assistance. So it's broad in nature, and it's intended to cover, again, non-traditional employees, or workers, I should say, like independent contractors or gig workers, as well as specific circumstances under COVID-19. Those people were not ready to take their applications yet. That's what I was speaking to earlier. That should be coming very, very, very soon. So look for updates on our website as to when we will start processing those claims. And again, bear in mind, you're not missing out on any benefits. We can backdate those claims. You're not missing out on the additional $600. We can backdate those as well. In terms of what the self-employed or gig workers need to bring to the table when they go into the system to file, what they're going to need is anything that they would submit to for tax purposes to demonstrate the entirety of their earnings. Some may not have their 2019 tax documents ready, so we would ask you to bring your 2018 documents and anything you've got to demonstrate your earnings over what's called the base period. Talked about the $600. So just for general purposes, the highest benefit award right now is about $680. The average benefit award right now is about $450. That is without taking into account the $600. So that'll give you a general sense. Lori talked about the minimum. I just gave the average. I gave you the high. That'll give you an idea of the base benefit you might be eligible for, one might be eligible for, and then you would add on $600. I would also mention on the Colorado UI website, if you navigate it, or if you type in the search bar, there's something called a benefits calculator. You can get to that website, type in your information, it'll give you a sense of what benefits you might be looking at. So I've covered a lot. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing, but I think it's best if I move to questions and answers to try to get to your specific questions.
Thank you, Jeff. This is Terry. I am going to start taking questions from the chat. I'll read them to you, and Jeff, Lori, or Aaron, whoever wants to jump in. Julia, I'm going to ask you to just give a quick reminder if someone's on the phone, what they need to do to ask a question, and then we'll start reading.
Sure, yeah. If you're dialed in on the phone and you would like to contribute, you can use *9 at any point, and that will indicate to us that you would like to jump into the conversation. And then we'll
Thank you.
but it's *6 to unmute on the phone when the time comes. But Terry will prompt you if we see your hand raised. Thanks.
Thank you. Jeff, quick question. If someone was receiving unemployment prior to COVID and then got a job and then was laid off because of COVID, and they already have an active PIN that's supposed to be good for a year, did they do anything different? They can just go back and reactivate their claim. Is that true?
Yes, if that's the situation, you should be able to go back in and just start filing or requesting payment once again for the weeks that are relevant to you. That should be the path that you can take. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. If a business was closed on July 1st, if they're still closed on July 1st, can employees go back onto UI?
Yes, depending upon your situation, whether it sounds like this question's about employees, but yes, there's nothing prohibiting you from claiming unemployment insurance past July, assuming you haven't expired your total benefit weeks. Okay.
If a business thinks that a lender information on PPP is not correct, SBA mentioned that the lender decision is final. So the question is, who do they contact?
I would contact the SBA.
Okay. Let's see. Zoe, I'm going to hold off on your question because I think that's more for the businesses to respond to. It is my understanding that in some cases, employees can make more in unemployment benefits than they can working their hourly jobs. Is anyone worried about trying to rehire or any suggestions? Aaron, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, this has come up. This has been a concern for some employers that it's hard to say how we're going to look on the other side of this. I think, I don't know, Jeff, do you have any thoughts around this?
Yeah, it's a concern that's brought up. Frankly, as I mentioned, the federal government sets the guidelines on the parameters of the CARES Act. And so we were frankly a little bit surprised that the $600 was a flat number. We thought that it might be tailored depending upon the number of hours that you're working or what your benefits are. So that is a uniform number. We have no control over that number. There is some level of concern around total benefits received as compared to normal wages. I don't have a good answer for that. I think the idea and the goal is to get an economic stimulus out into the community to keep things afloat, and that was their underlying goal.
And I understand it affects some industries more than others, like retail, restaurant, early childhood education. So it is a concern for the local community how we're going to rebound and get employees back to work. So
the only thing I would add is that the $600 does expire at the end of July. So it is not, unlike the other measures of the CARES Act, it doesn't extend through December. So it is a temporary influx.
I might ask you to unmute because I'm not sure if you have a question about the itemized list of costs. Did you have something specific to ask around that, Peter? I'm going to keep going. Are employers covered under the UI as well? If so, how are benefits determined?
Are employers? So if you're self-employed, is that
I think what they
Susan,
mean is if they have to lay everybody off and then they don't have work, would they be covered? I think that's what that means.
Susan, do you want to unmute and clarify?
So I think generally the answer is it depends. If you're self-employed, you're absolutely covered under the CARES Act. If, for example, you may be covered under pandemic unemployment assistance as it relates to COVID-19. So if you've had to shutter your doors due to COVID-19 specifically, or if you're caring for someone under COVID-19, or if you've got a child and you at home and you cannot work remotely, then those are all broad areas where you might be eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance. I would encourage you to, if you fall broadly into one of those categories, more than likely you should apply for assistance. In terms of how your benefits are going to be determined, it's really going to be, again, driven by your tax documents, demonstration and proof of what your earnings are, and that will generate the calculation for appropriate benefits.
Thank you. Peter, I think you unmuted. Go ahead and ask.
I did, thanks. All I'm wondering about is if there is a comprehensive list that anybody has created that really itemizes or identifies those costs that have been approved as payroll costs. You mentioned rent, utilities, and then you use the word and things like that. Has anybody itemized this list?
If you go, when I gave that presentation, I have the link to the SBA regulations. And if you go to that link and look at those regulations, it is itemized there.
Okay.
I'll share that link after this call. If you apply for unemployment benefits today, when would someone expect a payment?
Great question. So if you apply today, you should expect to be able to request a payment within 10 to 14 days. So the window for requesting payment starts on a Sunday. And what you'll do is you'll go in, but you don't have to do it on Sunday. It simply starts on a Sunday. So what you would do on any given Sunday is fill out a payment request in our Smart Pay is what it's called application. And it'll ask you to report on the previous 2 weeks. And so you put in your information, hit the send button, and then once you've submitted that, that'll be about 2 to 3 business days before it hits your bank account.
Great. Erica, do you want to unmute? You mentioned that you're confused about the extra 600. Is there something specific you wanted to ask on that?
Yeah, is it weekly? Is it, because I haven't seen the extra 600, so I'm a little bit confused about that in general.
Yeah, happy to answer that. A, it is weekly, and B, we haven't started paying that. That's part of what we're still programming. We got guidance at the end of last week on how that's to be administered. So sorry for that challenge. We are not yet processing that $600. However, there's nothing additional you need to do. So if, for example, you started filing on March 15th and you've been getting benefits since March 15th, we will go back, excuse me, I just offered a bad date. If you've been filing since March 29th, that's when the $600 can go back to. If you've been filing since March 29th, we will go back and pay you in arrears for the weeks that you've been filing to date. So there's nothing additional you should do, but no, we are not currently paying that, but you will be brought to whole on that once we start paying that.
The next is a question that we've gotten a few times. As an employer, can I give my few staffed employees a temporary raise right now using my PPP funds?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Can businesses use their PPP funds to give employees a temporary raise.
The problem with doing that is that the way the PPP works is they look back over time to see what you were paying your employees. And that's what they're going to base your loan amounts on. So I can't advise that.
Okay. There's a hand raised with the phone number ending in 3848. If you want to go ahead and unmute really fast. Go ahead, 3848. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I own a restaurant with 17 employees and have never had a UI claim. My UI factor rate has been very low for years. My premium is around $4,000 a year. Can I expect my premium to double or go even higher?
That's a great question. So what you can expect is that the rate schedule will go up, which will have an impact on the entire employee universe. Now, if you have the highest rating, meaning you've never had a layoff history in your career, then that may not impact your experience rate. What will impact the broad universe is what I touched on earlier, which is the solvency surcharge, which is a mechanism. It's a safety mechanism essentially to try and stave off insolvency within the trust fund, and that's going to hit the entire universe of employers.
Julia, can you give quick instruction again how 3848 can unmute?
Yeah, it looks like they are unmuted, so I don't know if your phone number is.
Hey, sorry, my own phone was muted there. Yeah, quick question on the extra $600. Is there a list of what industries you mentioned gig and some other things? Is everyone that files eligible for that extra $600? And this is in regards, obviously, to the other folks' questions of some people making more money on unemployment along with the extra $600. Is everyone eligible for that? Restaurant workers, retail, everyone?
Yes, is the broad answer. So whether you're on regular unemployment insurance or whether you're on pandemic unemployment assistance, everyone will be eligible for that $600 for the time range of March 29th through July 25th.
Okay, we probably have time for about 2 more questions. If we didn't get to your questions, we will try to do a follow-up and get them answered. Next question, we are receiving a PPP loan. How will it affect us if one of our employees starts receiving pandemic unemployment assistance?
Well, as I understand it, you have to keep you have to have at least 75% of your payroll costs. I would look at the regulations to make sure of that, but that's my understanding. So if just one employee, I guess it depends on how many employees you have, but the idea is that you keep most of your employees employed, and that's why you get that loan.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. If anybody would like an email follow-up from Lori, please just put your first and last name in the chat group, and I'll share email addresses with her following the call. I'm going to take the last question. It's kind of a follow-up to, can I give my employees a raise? We were planning on giving extra PTO hours. Is that okay? Because we don't have enough physical hours of work to offer.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. I'll do one more because it looks like this is a common question, and then we will thank our guests again for joining us. During the forgiveness period, is it okay to give a temporary raise to someone since payroll? Oh wait, no, it's ended. This has nothing to do with how much the loan can be based upon 250% of average month for a year. This is full cycle. Do you want to clarify that question really fast? Full cycle?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So you're just asking the question about the 8-week period. My understanding is that they want you to maximize your payroll during that 8-week period, and I'm not aware of any constraints that says you can't pay somebody more during that period as long as what you're using your original loan is 75% covering your payroll during that 8-week period. So I'm just trying to get some clarification on that, because I've actually had staff asking if they could get a bonus and things like that. And then it also offsets the issue of, well, why wouldn't the person just rather stay on unemployment and collect $600 plus their regular unemployment benefits? They actually are going to make more money than if they worked.
I don't really feel when I look at the regulations, what it says to me is that they're going to do a trailing number the last 12 months. So I'm just not sure that that's going to be reimbursed. I might be incorrect about that.
Well, yeah.
I would encourage you to look at the regulations. That's the best answer.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure. I've before the call I was digging through it, and it's hard to decipher. But the 250% of the last 12 months, that's how they calculate what your benefit is. But they don't say anything in terms of the terms of forgiveness. They don't say, well, you know, as far as I can tell, it's not specified. It just says 75% has to be for payroll.
That's true. That's true.
So anyway, I don't know the answer. I just wondered, I think it's something that it's, as we decide how best to go forward, we're left with the decision of, well, do we hire someone back, or are we better off letting them not work and get more benefit for them? And then we still have potentially more available to pay other people that we need to have work using the funds we had. You know,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
The problem is the law never likes a windfall, so the courts and everybody moves to protect people from, or protect people, or maybe punish people is a better word, from windfalls. So that always makes me nervous, and that's the best answer I can give you.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one more question, a follow-up that I'll let Chip take. I don't want to keep our presenters longer. I told them it would be an hour, and we're so very grateful for your time. If you have another minute, great. If you need to get off, we just thank you so much for taking this time and joining us, and we really appreciate all the information you shared. Chip, do you want to jump on to?
Sure. Yeah. Just
ask
also
a follow-up question.
Sure. To reiterate that, thank you so much to all of you, not only for taking your time for today, but also really understanding the increase in workload and all the complications you are all dealing with back in your offices or your virtual offices. So really thank you for all the work you're doing. I think we should start a howl for you guys in the employment work, maybe at 8:05 or 8:10. So there was a really quick question. It seems like this might be a quick one to answer rather than follow up on Milan's question about if the lender information on the PPP is not correct. SBA mentioned that the lender decision is final. And Lori, maybe do you have any input on that? Does that question make sense? Or Milan, do you want to unmute?
Unfortunately, I don't know what to do about that. And that's why I said the only thing I know to do is to contact the SBA about that. That's the only thing I know.
All right. Maybe we can try to help follow up on that. Thank you again, all of you, Lori, Erin, and Jeff, for your time this morning and for all the great work you're doing. I know your tasks are not easy these days. I'm going to, Terry, is this my update time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great.
We'll go ahead and share. I'll share all those people that want more information with Lori later today. And I wanted to activate a poll for you guys, but I'm not able to. So the other question to share while Chip is giving an update is, if you want us to continue these weekly meetings, could you just put weekly or bi-weekly in the chat notes, and we'll try to go from there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Terry. And I'll just do a really quick update. Just thanks again also to Terry and the whole staff at DBP, really working very hard these days to try to get you all the information and resources we need. So really thank you for Terry and Julia and the whole team here, looking out for all of you. Just a couple of quick updates, kind of some of the things we're thinking about and working on here. Security has become is becoming an increased issue downtown, really trying to stay on top of that as much as we're able to, working with the Boulder Police Department and working with the city to help manage the downtown, as you all are not down there and we don't have our visitors as much keeping an eye on things. We're really working on that. We've added a security officer in the evenings, and we're going to increase that during the day to monitor downtown as much as possible. We are seeing some businesses deciding to board up their windows. Really encourage everybody, if you have ground floor storefronts, to remove any visible valuables if you can, out of the window. Really, it's been suggested putting up even signs that say no cash on premises, but there are things we encourage you to do. Chris also posted a great resource if you are needing some quick boarding up. We've already seen a couple of break-ins and unfortunate situations of windows. We have something in the Slack channel. You can get a hold of somebody pretty quickly to help with that. So we're really focused on security. The bathrooms on 13th and Pearl have been closed effective today. We have porta potties on the mall, throughout the mall, not on the 1300 block, but dispersed in other ways, really hoping that will help the safety issues that we're experiencing from the congregating of folks in and around the bathrooms there. So those bathrooms are closed, and we'll be watching that really closely. I mentioned we're adding additional security coming up towards the end of the week, as soon as we get more security available. So downtown. So that's a big part of our focus right now. We also have a number of promotional events happening. It is Tulip Fairy time coming up, so we're doing a lot of virtual Tulip Fairy stuff and trying to keep people and families engaged with a lot of different online activities. We're doing some sort of Where's Waldo type activities online for the Tulip Fairies, hiding the Tulip Fairies in places around downtown, pictures, doing a number of fun activities to keep people engaged and give the youngins something to do that relates to downtown. We're also, Terry and Julie have been promoting the Cause and Effect program, which is our gift card promotion. Number of retailers are participating in donating some of the funds from gift card sales to the Feed the Frontlines effort, which is doing quite a bit to support the healthcare workers and other essential workers in Boulder. And hearing some good feedback initially from that, and we'll continue to promote that. That's gotten some good hits on a few big social media accounts that we're very excited about this week. And then we also have our Employee Assistance Fund. Later this week, we will start doling out some of the gifts from that. And to just recap, if you're not familiar with this, we are raising funds to support folks who are experiencing some hardships, who are employees working in the district who have lost shifts or lost their jobs temporarily, who are needing some extra help. So we have a nomination form there, and we have ways you can donate. We're raising a bit of funds there, and hopefully that will continue. So please spread the word on that. If you are able to post that on your social media accounts or get folks aware of this, it helps us help a little bit with some of the employees downtown. So you can sign up to do a virtual race. If you want to go run on your own and post your time, we'll be giving out prizes as well for those who raise the most money and some of the race participants as well. So that's a quick overview of some of the things we're working on. as you know, as you've witnessed, so much of this is changing week to week as what the focus what the focus is for us and for you all as businesses in the downtown. So I would love to hear from you about what your situation is, the information you're wanting to get. I really commend Terry and the work she's done in putting together these weekly meetings. Obviously, the first few weeks was a lot of information about the PPP and the CARES Act and the EIDL loans, and now this was a great information, I feel like, on the unemployment. So let us know what else you're needing, what you're thinking about, what you're wanting to hear, so we can kind of craft these to what makes sense for you. You can either put something in the chat box this morning or send Terry or myself an email. I'm sure you all have our emails with Terry at downtownboulder.org and Chip at downtownboulder.org. And we'll continue to do these calls. Please do utilize the Slack channel if you want to communicate with your other folks in the district or us, either way. And that's pretty much all I have. Unless folks have questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer any questions either now or track down the answers if I don't have them.
Chip, I did have one request that I just want to share with everybody, and I'll put this out via email as well. I started a document. It's anonymous. We started it a few weeks ago. If people wanted to share what landlords were offering, just so you guys could kind of see, we actually were asked to reshare this if people are negotiating. So I will share it again. Again, you don't have to share any personal information, but it might just be a good resource that people can use. So I shared the link in the chat box, and I'll send it out in my email reminder as well. And I think we have a question from the phone number ending in 8639. So if you want to go ahead and I can unmute you, go ahead and talk.
Hi, this is Richard Polk. I just wanted to start a conversation about how we open up. So it's not something we can figure out today, and the ideas that I'm going to share, we haven't even discussed and decided on at the pedestrian shops. However, I think these questions will come up, and it's good if we can all be thinking about them. So when it's time to open up, do we want to say something individually or collectively that we check our employees' temperatures daily, or do we want to do anything like that? Do we want to have appointments for seniors one day a week? People that, conversations I've had, people that are over 60 are going to be reluctant to be in crowded places right away until there are some outcomes from the reopening. So I'm hoping you're hearing me, but those are the questions I think we should start thinking about, not solve today.
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. I think there's going to be quite a bit to, right now there's a lot of speculation, but I think there's certainly a lot to consider when we do reopen. It's going to reopen in a very different form than we've experienced before. So I think those are really good ideas to start having those conversation, and maybe we can talk a little more about how to create a format for putting together a plan for how we reopen, knowing that our plan will change several times. We should at least start on that process. So I really appreciate you bringing that forward.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions at this point? It looks like
I'll just comment that we've been trying, everybody that's asked questions the past several weeks, we have a document with all of your questions on it, and we're trying to get them answered. It was really a little bit of a challenge to get people on the call today to talk about unemployment stuff because things keep changing so rapidly. So we'll continue to compile the questions that we're getting on the chats. We're not ignoring anybody's, we're just we're having a slow time getting responses.
And it does look like what I'm seeing is there's a desire for a weekly call to continue weekly. So that's great.
We can do that.
Great. Well, thank you all. Unless, Terry, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I will send out kind of a recap either later today or first thing tomorrow with all of the information on the call and a link to this. And just again, a reminder that next week, Senator Fenberg will be joining us from 9 to 9:30 on this call to give us an update from his end. So
right. And I want to just add to that. I think since Senator Fenberg is very involved in the state level, obviously, and a lot of the information we have been getting around PPP and the Cures Act is, federal information. So it'll be a really good perspective to understand what's happening on the state level. And he's a great advocate for us here in Boulder and downtown Boulder. So I look forward to that. And that'll be very valuable information, I'm sure. Great, thank you all, and we'll talk next week. And please continue to use the Slack channel to communicate with us and each other, or reach out if you need anything at all.
thank you.